Hi everybody, good morning. It's Jean here, Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. I'm doing my block number 3 of Jean's Block Party 2021, my Dear Jean quilt. Before I get into that, my tutorial was, as you know, if you've been following, from my other line of fabric. I did 3 blocks with my first line of fabric. I have changed it up to using my K facet fabrics. But I have to just address a few things. Thank you so much for being eagle-eyed watchers. I thought I lost my blocks, my first blocks. And eagle-eyed, you saw that I had put them in my project bag for safekeeping, right? It fell. It fell down behind my ironing station. I looked all over, and it was only after a couple people said, I thought you put them in safekeeping in a project bag, right? Well, there they are. There they were, my original blocks, and I'm keeping my new blocks in until I have a few, and then I have my box. But just to reiterate, the following tutorial is made a couple weeks ago with my old fabric, and it's interesting because block number 3 is an seemingly easy block. Very, very easy. You're going to go, what? That'll take me 2 seconds to make. But if you're not precise in your stitching and go slow and you're cutting, your block will not measure properly. You'll know what I'm saying, and you'll have this sort of like a lump at the top. You'll see what I'm saying. It's a very simple snowball block. But before I get to that, I just want to show you, this is how I'm keeping my blocks. This is my block number 1. Okay, we did a simple 4 patch. This is how I keep track of them. Just for my, again, your blocks are not block 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just how I'm doing it for my own files here. This is block number 1, our simple 4 patch, which I hope you loved. Whoops. Oh, excuse me. That fell. Block number 2 was our lovely little bow tie. A lot of people have been sending their pictures into my Facebook page, which is Truelove Quilts for You, and go to the community section, community. On my computer, it says about, photos, events, more. On my desktop, if I click on more, then a whole bunch of things come down, and there's community. I do not know how to post, or I don't know, I can't tell you how to post your pictures on another tablet or another phone. I don't know how to do that. All I can see is what I see on my desktop computer. Whoops, sorry, ladder. I said sorry to the ladder. So I don't know how to do that. So people are saying, well, how do I do this? I don't know how to do that. But people are sharing their blocks. That's so exciting. It's so nice. Anyway, here's block number 3, in my new fabrics. The tutorial again is for the other fabrics. This is block number 3, and it's a very simple looking snowball block. We just cut out a 6.5-inch piece of fabric and attach the corners. But again, you have to cut your corner square. These are squares turned into triangles, okay? And I explain that. Now, what you're basically using, when I say to go over, to get the turning, remember the turning of our thread width, to go slightly inside. Somebody, thank you so much, had made the suggestion or the tip, or the hint that so many machines, perhaps more of a computerized machine, maybe not, maybe, my Juki doesn't do it, you can click over to the right 1 click, and that takes your needle position 1 click in. You're still measuring your 1/4 inch on your foot, or your measurement where the edge of your fabric is to get your 1/4 inch seam, but the machine has been set so when you stitch it, it's 1 thread smaller than your 1/4 inch seam, and you don't have to adjust that yourself, which is my machine. I have to do that. I always say set it at a 1/4 inch and then just go in a little bit to allow for the turning, because again, there's so many things. I was thinking about it. I've been making blocks 4, 5, and 6. And when I'm doing it, I'm trying to explain there's so many things that you need to really, skills that you really need as a beginner to set down. And I fudge it a lot, I wing it a lot, I'm always saying that. My points don't really matter, but at the end of the day, when I make something, my points match because I've done it. I've done it, and that makes a good quilter. That makes a good quilter. By all means, if you're beginning and it doesn't quite work out, that's when I'm saying don't stress. Oh my word, don't stress about it. Who cares? But when the more you do something, the better you get at it. That's all. And on one of my blocks, there's a specific measurement coming up. And it may not be one that you're used to. And I explain it to you. I explain that to you and everything. But what I'm saying is I'm trying to set down for you beginners a good basis and perfecting your 1/4 inch and then what's called the scant 1/4 inch, which is again 1 or 2 threads inside your 1/4 inch. And that's what our little snowball block, to get this perfectly square. It looks simple, but you have to make sure that your corner squares, when they're sewn into their and trimmed into their triangles, your block is going to measure nice and square. Because if you skew your block a little bit, or if your seam is not perfectly straight, your block won't be good. So that's the tutorial coming up. Thank you so much for that tip. Thank you so much for being in my sewing room and telling me that you did put them in your project bag, Jean. It fell. There's so much stuff here. Oh, we got 4 more inches of snow last night. Maxwell got his quad out this morning. He's so helpful. And he plowed our driveway for us. He plowed the upper half of our driveway. We haven't done the lower half from 3 snowstorms ago. That's all right. Oh, people are asking about the bridge. Obviously, our bridge that is being repaired, or the bridge that is being repaired down at the end of the road, it's completely covered with snow, too dangerous to go down, and there's not been one worker for the last 2 weeks or so. So that as soon as it comes out, actually interesting, Ian and I did walk down about 2 weeks ago, and we actually walked across the bridge to the other side. And I will put up some video of that later, but if we can walk down and see, I don't know if there's any progress, but they've taken all of the cranes away, all of the diggers, all of the backhoes. So I think the work down below is maybe done. I'm not sure. The creek is running. So, and the bridge span is there, as you've seen. But the bridge itself and the road itself has not been completed. In fact, it went down like this, and then we walked up the arch. I'll put a video up of that. Oh my word, that was a bit, But yeah, so people are asking about the bridge. Come to a standstill because of the snow. It's such a pretty snow this year, I must say. Everything, even in parking lots, it seems, other than in our woods, it's very pretty, but the snow is so pristine and white. It's not gotten filthy dirty. It's staying around. The roads, of course, are clear. You can see blacktop because they plow. But anyway, we had that. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. So, but I'm still safe and warm in my sewing room, and this is our block number 3 coming up. I hope you enjoy this tutorial, folks. Again, this was filmed a couple weeks ago. All right, thanks again, and I'll talk to you later. Bye. So right now, I'm just showing you beginners, not you advanced or experienced quilters, how to make certain blocks. Now, this block, number 3, may look very simple. Absolutely. This is it. Very simple block, right? You're thinking it's a hunk of fabric, right? Basically, it's sort of like almost like a 4-patch, a 4 grid. Remember, because it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4 in that 4 grid, if you can understand that. But we've only used 1 large piece of fabric. We've used a 6.5 inch square right in the middle with 4 snowballed corners. Now the reason I chose this is last week we did the little bow block with the 2 corners that made the triangle from the squares. Now this one, it looks simple, and it is, once you get it down right. You have to make sure that you've cut your squares perfectly 2 inches to go on the corner of your block, because you're then cutting away, you're stitching and cutting away that underneath block there. So you have to make sure that these are not crooked, that you've stitched them perfectly on the diagonal, that there's 4 of them in order to come up with a 6.5 inch unfinished block here. So for block number 3, I have chosen an all over, a little bit of a larger print, as you saw in the beginning. I wanted to showcase this print. That's why I've chosen this simple snowballed block, okay? So what I have done is I have neatened up my fat quarter. As you can see, I just took a little bit of a slice away just to neaten up and square up that edge. Now, for our block number 3, I'm using my 2 different fabrics. I am using my fabric A, which is this print here, and I'm using my fabric B, which is actually over on my ironing board. I have to iron it yet. For fabric A, this one, I'm cutting one 6.5 inch square. That's it for now. That's what I'm going to be doing. So what you have gotten, or if you have a larger ruler and you wanting to just use that, I am putting my 6.5 inch square on my corner here, which I have 2 sides are completely straight. Now I'm going to cut my 6.5 inch square, and again I'm going to open up my rotary cutter. I'm holding my ruler. Now it's not a real good idea to cut towards you, but in this instance I have a nice sharp blade. My hand, my elbow, everything was well away from it. I could have, if I had wanted to, I could have put my ruler right there and cut. But I was okay cutting my 6.5 inch square, whoops, right from my fabric there. So there mostly is going to be our block. We're just going to snowball the corners now. So now what I'm going to do is I put this back in my pile. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to get out my fabric B, and I'm going to be cutting 4 2-inch squares. So for this block, I've just made a mistake. My camera went off, but I will show you exactly what I did. I'm cutting fabric B out, this smaller print here. I'm cutting 4 2-inch squares. My camera just glitched off. The battery just went out. But what I've done, and as I've done it before, I've neatened up this edge here, I've neatened up this edge here, and what I did is I found my 2-inch marking on my ruler here, and I cut that, and then I cut it across, because we are going to be cutting 4 2-inch squares out of this piece of fabric. I'm sorry, I have done that. My camera had clicked off. So what I'm doing is I know that this edge down here and these 2 edges are nice and cut, so I'm just going to put that on my board, and I'm going to neaten up this edge here, because that's the one I just cut off. And now I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to be cutting 4 perfectly square 2-inch units. 2-inch and 2-inch. Don't know why that happened to my ruler, my camera. 2-inch by 2-inch. Perfect. And, oops, careful, my ruler just slid a little bit. I'm holding it. And there we go. So there are my 4 snowballed corners. Here is my block. And now, just like we did in block number 2, we are going to be snowballing the corners of my block here. Again, first thing you do, not beating a dead horse, but you want to make sure that your stitch is all lovely and straight, your tension is perfect, and everything is laid out in front of you. I find that the easiest thing. You've washed your hands, we're ready to sew again. However many of these blocks you want to make. So I'm picking up my 6.5 inch block here, and I'm picking up a square. This is done exactly the same way that we did our last one. We are making cornerstones. We're making little snowball units. Now again, we are stitching from this diagonal, from this corner to that corner on the diagonal, about 1 thread or 2 threads inside, but you want to keep that nice and straight. And I put my needle down carefully, just about 1 thread in, and very slowly and eyeballing it, a nice straight line. As I said last week, if you would want to, if you wanted to put a pencil line there, you by all means you could. I can eyeball it right to the end, and I'm allowing that little tiny bit of thread to turn over my corner perfectly straight like that. I'm going to continue all 4 corners. This is nice if you have this block is nice if you have a slightly larger print that you want to not cut up as much in your fabric. This showcases your print in your quilt. Again, before we trim anything, I always make sure that my corners are completely lovely and square. Just go slowly, and again, as you can see, if you've cut them really well, then they're going to, and you're going in one thread or so to allow for the thread and the fabric turn. Your block's going to end up a nice 6.5 inch square. There's 3 of them. This is an easy block. And there you go. Pinch, pull, and trim. And then check. And there is our lovely square block. I'm pretty assured that that's lovely and square. I will go over and set my seams, and let me get my scissors here, and now I will trim these to about 1/4 inch away. And again, we're working with squares to make our little triangles, because this triangle, if you were going to sew that triangle, which we will be sewing triangles, that's a skill we're going to be learning, but not right now. The triangle right here, this piece, if we were cutting it, is on the bias, and that has a tendency to stretch. So this is sort of a cheater's way. You waste just a little tiny bit of fabric, but so you're working with a square instead of the triangle. But a little bit later on, we will be working with triangles. Now I'm going to go over to my ironing board, and I'm going to just press that beautifully. My block number 3 is done. So here's my little snowballed block number 3 as it's come off my sewing machine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just set these seams just like that. I'm going to set these 4 corner seams so they sink right into the block there, and then I'm just going to roll that up. I'm going to roll that up, not pushing anything, just roll it up and press those corners down. Just going to roll it up. This might be not necessary, but if you want a little bit of starch to starch these corners, that might work well too. Just roll that right up to make it square. As you know, I don't use steam in my iron, but a lot of people do. Roll that right up. There's not a tremendous amount of contrast, but I quite like it. This is a nice subtle block. In fact, what I am going to do is I think I will just do a little spritz of water there. And there you go. Flatten it just a little bit. I like my water bottle that I use instead of steam. I like this. It's just a dollar store water bottle, and look how lovely and flat that block became there. Wonderful. Wonderful. And you can see the contrast. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to bring it over, having ironed it, pressed it, and I'm going to see, because sometimes these can get, yep, it's a slightly, there's just a few little threads on this edge here. This might be a little bit of a test. There's just a thread right here down in this corner, just a sliver, that much on that corner. That was it. And then just a sliver there. And this is what I mean, those 2 little slivers, this is what I mean by squaring up. You just take those 2 little slivers. Sometimes you might need a little bit, there might be a little bit there, but right there, at the end of the day, there is my ta-da moment, and I have a 6.5 inch, very simple, simple block that I've done there, but a nice, I've highlighted this print for my block number 3. So it's an easy one, but again, you want to make sure you get your 1/4 inch right, and you can see I had just a little bit to sliver off to make it my 6.5. That's a very good test for your 1/4 inch seam. So I hope you enjoyed block number 3, folks, of our block party. All right, see ya. Bye.